The engineers, also known as space jockeys, Ossians, or Malakak, are an ancient extraterrestrial species of unknown origin. They possess some of the most advanced technologies in the entire galaxy, with a special emphasis on their skills in genetic engineering. They are attributed with the creation of humanity and are believed to be a kind of benevolent creator species who navigated the stars, terraforming the primordial celestial bodies and seeding them with the foundations of biological life. As such, some worship them as gods of the species they created. The engineers have a multitude of different names. The deciphered hieroglyphic tablets found on Tanaka 5 referred to them as Ossians, while the decoded beacon from the abandoned ship on LV-426 referred to a species known as Malakak. The name engineer was given by Elizabeth Shaw and Charlie Holloway because they are the life form responsible for designing the human race. Although their scientific name was originally Mundus Givernavi, or Universal Pilot, this name was actually incongruent since there is no pilot gender to base it on. After Elizabeth Shaw's notes were recovered sometime after her disappearance, a more appropriate name was given after the revelation that the engineers were the predecessors of the human race, and they were also named Homo Genitor, meaning creator of man. The engineers are extremely pale humanoids. They are easily distinguished from humans by their lack of hair, high nasal bridge, raised eyebrows, and extreme height. The veins underneath their skin are visible, and their eyes are completely black. Although some fossilized evidence suggests that engineers reach a height of 4.5 meters, the widely accepted consensus is that they generally had an average height of 2.7 meters. Their musculature appears very similar to that of humans, with visible muscles closely matching the general constitution of humans. They also appear to be extremely strong and resistant, given the fact that the last engineer killed Peter Weyland's escorts by sending them flying across the room with simple blows, and was impervious to damage from close-range gunfire. However, this engineer was equipped with a biomechanical pressure suit that likely also increased their resistance and durability, functioning like a biotech power suit. In the Predator, Fire and Stone comic, a physical fight between an experienced predator and an engineer shows that the latter is much stronger and dominates the fight, ignoring a plasma blast and seriously injuring the predator, forcing it to use all its tactics, equipment, and the help of a human to defeat the engineer. The engineers on Planet 4, as seen in Alien Covenant, however, appeared more primitive and slightly different in appearance from those that the crew of the USCSS Prometheus found on LV-223. Having eyes more similar to those of humans, much more variation in the body, and also varying in height, compared to the universally tall and muscular engineers seen in Prometheus. Although the clothes they wore have a surprising similarity to those worn by the sacrificial engineers of Prometheus. Based on a deleted scene from Prometheus, as well as their voices as heard during David's genocide on Planet 4, their voices seem similar to humans, albeit apparently lower in tone. Although not much is known about the engineers, it appears that this species has shown advanced forms of culture within their society, such as language, visual arts, music, and clothing. Music, specifically, seems to be a strong aspect of their culture, with a special tool similar to a flute serving as a tool to operate different technological instruments. It has been hypothesized that the engineers view music not only as sound, but also as colors, shapes, and words. Their practices are unknown, although it seems that they have great reverence for engineers found in other worlds, as the entire city of Planet 4 came to greet the Juggernaut ship. The language of the engineers has been compared to a variation of Proto-Indo-European. Although it was pure speculation, Elizabeth Shaw theorized that the female members of the species adopted a leadership role, while males assumed positions of soldier, craftsman, and philosopher. They were incredibly similar visually to their male counterparts, and equally as deadly. Some theories suggest that there may be a caste system for the species, differentiating between a civilian and a militant type. Most engineer sites will consist of at least one giant stone head. It is speculated that these represent one of the 6 elders of their civilization. Little is known about this race. The main theory regarding their connection to the xenomorphs, which was briefly mentioned by Ridley Scott in the director's commentary for the first Alien movie, is that the found ship was a bomber and they used them as biological weapons to fight in an ancient war against an unknown enemy. There is some evidence supporting this, such as the biomechanical nature of the xenomorphs. It was believed that xenomorph eggs were used as bombs on an enemy planet, and then the xenomorphs proceeded to kill the entire population as they emerged. In Prometheus, it is shown that a lone engineer was responsible for creating the human race. He sacrificed himself when his people abandoned Earth, still devoid of life. This engineer drank a chemical substance that broke him down into his most basic components and mixed his DNA with the first microorganisms on the planet. Humanity soon developed, turning the engineers into the ancestors of the human race. As such, human DNA and engineer DNA are practically identical. The reasons for the lone engineer to do this are unknown, although it seems that his race did not have any positive opinion of their descendants. Dozens of cargo ships carrying the black liquid weapon were ready to launch towards Earth to release the pathogen and let it annihilate humanity. But for some reason, the engineers somehow lost control of their weapons, which turned against them. The crew of the USCSS Prometheus believed that the abandoned planet they explored was an outpost for engineering and weapons development, giving credence to the theory that the engineers created the xenomorphs, or perhaps more specifically, the black pathogen that led to the creation of the trilobite for war. The Prometheus crew also noticed that the engineers of LV-223 had been dead for about 2,000 years. This has led fanatics to speculate that until about 2,000 years ago, the engineers were on good terms with humans, but a specific event occurred that made them hostile towards humanity. This explains why the cave paintings invite humanity to track them. In the comic series Fire and Stone, over a century after the events of Prometheus, an engineer is depicted attempting to exterminate all life on LV-223, xenomorphs and the Drion crew alike. Scientist Angela Foster speculated that the engineers are hostile because they see humanity as a disappointment or a mistake. Another theory comes from Melville, who believes that the engineers may possibly be protecting humanity, preventing them from obtaining the black substance out of fear that its effects on the human race will be too devastating. During a podcast with Empire magazine, director Ridley Scott explained that engineers periodically visit planets that they seeded with life to check on their creations. If their creations were disappointing, the engineers would eradicate an entire generation of species using the pathogen and start again. The engineers are a technologically advanced race. They are extremely advanced in genetic engineering and have built their own spaceships, such as the massive Black Ship and the Juggernaut-class ships. Some xenobiologists have speculated that the engineers' technology is not their own, but is actually based on that of even more advanced creatures, hence the presence of the much larger space jockey within the LV-426 planetoid. The cargo hold of this ship was filled with xenomorph eggs, which are kept in stasis under a blue electrical mist. Fans have speculated that the space jockey race are the creators of the xenomorphs due to similarities in design between the spacecraft and the biomechanical xenomorphs. While exploring the interior of the engineer's temple, David observed a viscous substance with an energy inside that was used to press buttons, activate doors and objects. Additionally, there was a living engineer in a form of stasis similar to that used by humans. The engineers were capable of holograms, terraforming atmospheres, creating species through bioengineering, and perhaps even accelerating evolution. The engineers continue to visit Earth several times to observe the development of the human race, presumably to conduct unknown studies on humanity. Approximately 2,000 years ago, the engineers stationed on LV-223 initiated a plan to end humanity for unknown reasons by releasing the black liquid they had created. However, they apparently lost control of the pathogen and led to the engineers dying there. 4 surviving engineers took refuge inside their ship, storing themselves within their hypersleep chambers. However, only one of them survived. In 2089, archaeologists Elizabeth Shaw and Charlie Holloway discovered a star map among several unrelated ancient cultures inside a cave during their expedition to the Isle of Skye. They interpreted this as an invitation from the engineers rather than a warning to stay away. Shaw then contacted Peter Wayland, the elderly CEO, creator of Wayland Corporation, for a proposal to obtain sufficient funds for an expedition to follow the star map. Wayland agreed to the proposal and funded the creation of the scientific vessel Prometheus to follow the map to the distant moon LV-223. On April 4, 2019, a probe sent by Wayland arrived at LV-223 to study the moon. However, before it could complete its readings, a passing engineer stepped on and destroyed it. In 2093, after the 2-year journey of the USCSS Prometheus, the ship arrived at LV-223. The crew explored the surface of the moon where they found the Temple of the Engineers. The crew entered the structure and discovered the bodies of some engineers, as well as several canisters of black goo stored within the structure. The interference of the crew caused the pathogen stored within the canisters to spill, and some members of the crew were exposed to the pathogen. In the ensuing chaos, most of them died. The android David successfully found the last surviving engineer, and informed Wayland, who had secretly been on board the ship the whole time. However, Wayland and his team went to the engineer's ship to communicate with the last engineer upon awakening. The engineer decapitated David after a brief conversation and killed Wayland along with the entire group, except for Shaw, who managed to escape. The engineer reactivated his ship and headed to Earth to carry out his original mission of ending the human race. The remaining crew later sacrificed themselves and the Prometheus to destroy the engineer's ship. The extraterrestrial survived and attacked Shaw inside the escape pod of the Prometheus. Shaw released the trilobite that she had extracted from her womb, which impregnated the engineer while Shaw escaped. The engineer later died and gave birth to a deacon. In 2094, David arrived on Planet 4 aboard an engineer ship and bombed the city with the black liquid, destroying the settlement and creating the Neomorphs. In 2104, the colonial ship Covenant discovered Planet 4. After a series of deaths and a disaster that left the crew stranded on the planet, David took the survivors to the city of the engineers, filled with the petrified remains of its former inhabitants. In 2122, while returning from Thetis, the USCSS Nostromo was diverted to the Zeta-2 system. The computer on board the Nostromo intercepted a distress signal from LV-426. The crew members were prematurely awakened from hypersleep, responded to the signal, and took the Nostromo to the planet. A three-person inspection team explored the surface of the planet and encountered an abandoned crashed ship. Upon entering the ship, they discovered the remains of a fossilized engineer wearing a biological suit and numerous eggs stored inside the ship's cargo bay. Kane was then impregnated by a facehugger and was brought back to the Nostromo for medical treatment, only to die a few hours later when a chestburster violently erupted from his body. The creature quickly matured into an adult and began killing the crew members one by one, leading to the destruction of the Nostromo. In 2137, the USCSS Anasidora discovered the same remains as the Nostromo. The crew discovered the fossilized engineer and the abandoned team from the Nostromo. While exploring the ship, crew member Catherine Foster was attacked by a facehugger, and the Anasidora subsequently headed to the Sevastopol station for help, which led to a xenomorph outbreak there. In 2179, the Terraforming and Research Colony established by Hadley's Hope on LV-426 received an order from Weyland-Yutani's executive Carter Burke to locate the ship. Having learned of its location from the claims of the sole survivor of the Nostromo, Ellen Ripley, topographers Russ and Ann Jordan located the ship. Russ was attacked by a facehugger and Ann pulled him out and radioed for help. Some members of the rescue team also entered the abandoned ship and were attacked. All victims were returned to the colony, which ultimately led to its downfall. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with our latest content. We love hearing from our viewers, so please leave a comment and share your ideas for future videos. Thanks for your support, and we can't wait to see you again in our next video.